Well, it's back, and this may be a good thing as Elizabeth Warren was just out talking about the $200 monthly raise for all Social Security beneficiaries. And she also indicated how this could be applied to benefit checks right now. Like literally right now, not next year, not in 6 months, but right now in 2026. In fact, I also have this video clip right here of Elizabeth Warren speaking, so you can see and hear for yourself exactly what she says right here in this clip. I'm going to play it for you in just a minute so you can hear it directly from her. But I want you to hear this because remember, Elizabeth Warren is one of a handful of senators who has come back repeatedly over the years to reintroduce the $200 per month raise in a variety of pieces of legislation, most notably the Emergency Social Security Inflation Relief Act. That came out a couple different times in the calendar year of 2025. She's been very consistent about this. This isn't just a one-time thing where she floated the idea and then forgot about it. She keeps coming back to it. She keeps pushing for it. And that tells me that she's serious about this, or at least she wants people to think she's serious about it. Now, she came out in this video right here talking about the affordability situation that we are dealing with right now in 2026 and basically saying, hey, seniors, Social Security beneficiaries, people with disabilities that are living on their monthly benefit check are getting hammered right now with their monthly benefit. And she's pointing out that the cost of living adjustments aren't cutting it, that people are falling behind, that purchasing power is eroding. Gee, thanks, Elizabeth Warren. She finally figured it out. Wow. Finally, a lawmaker that figured something out. I can't believe this, right? I mean, I'm being a little sarcastic here, but come on. Those of us who have been paying attention, those of us who have been watching what's happening with Social Security benefits for years and years and years, we've known this for a long time. We've been screaming about this for a long time. The purchasing power has been declining. The COLAs haven't been keeping up with actual expenses. This is not news to anyone who's actually living on Social Security. But hey, at least she's talking about it. At least somebody in Washington is acknowledging the problem. So I guess that's something. I don't know what to think about this whole thing. I really don't. On one hand, I'm glad that there's attention being brought to this issue. On the other hand, I'm skeptical because we've heard this before, we've seen these proposals before, and nothing ever seems to actually happen. Anyway, I want you to hear this for yourself because it's actually very interesting. Now, I want to be fair with you. She posted this video yesterday. The video was about a 7-minute video. I chopped out 1 minute and 40-something seconds here in this clip that I'm going to share with you because I want you to hear the most important part, the part where she actually talks about the $200 raise and what it would do for beneficiaries. So it's not the full clip that she posted yesterday. This is only about 1 minute and 40 seconds or so. The entire video was about 7 minutes of her talking about all kinds of stuff. She talked about Medicare. She talked about the Trump administration. She talked about healthcare costs. She talked about a bunch of different things, but I thought this was the most relevant part that I want you to hear for yourself. This is the part where she gets into the specifics of the proposal, where she talks about the numbers, where she explains why this is needed. Okay. Anyway, drop your comments down below when you hear this. I would really like to hear what you got to say about this. What do you think? Do you believe this is actually going to happen? Do you think this is just political theater? Let me know your thoughts. And as always, this video wouldn't be complete if I didn't say if you're on Medicare, call Chapter There. Dozens and dozens of you have already connected with them so far this year, saving a boatload of money. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Thousands of you, I mean multiple thousands, have saved collectively $2 million just in this community by calling them. $2 million. That's real money that's staying in people's pockets instead of going to insurance companies. So if you're on Medicare, and again, right here, right now in early 2026, if you're dealing with high premiums, if you're frustrated with your current plan, if you can't see the doctors you want to see, if your prescriptions are too expensive, give them a call. See what they can do for you. I've seen a ton of comments from people saying, can't see my doctor anymore. My prescriptions are very expensive. My plan changed and I didn't realize it. All the details like that. And you know what? You probably have some flexibility. You may have some optionality. You might be able to switch to a different plan that works better for you and costs less money. Call Chapter. They're amazing. They've helped out a ton of you in this community, saved a ton of money, and they're not going to pressure you into anything. They're going to look at your specific situation, your doctors, your prescriptions, your budget, and they're going to show you what options are available. After you talk to them, drop a comment down below on any video. Use the word chapter, and I'll grab your comment and add it to my ongoing list here, which I've shown you before. I've got stacks of pages of comments from people who have saved money by working with Chapter, and more on that later. Here's the truth. Social Security just hasn't kept up with rising costs, especially not for things like medical costs and home aids, things that seniors disproportionately spend their money on. And that's why, while Social Security benefits are updated every year to account for inflation, the adjustment just doesn't match the increased costs of living for most people who are on Social Security. Think of it this way. The adjustment happens after inflation has already done its damage. Over the last 15 years, Social Security benefits have lost 20% of their buying power. The Trump administration has announced that the cost of living increase for 2026 is about 2.8%. That's an average of just about $56 extra each month. Think about $56. That's not even enough to cover a week's worth of groceries for most people. That's hitting American seniors and people with disabilities especially hard. And here's why. Half of all American seniors rely on Social Security for half of their income. And it's the only source of income for 1 out of 4 people. Here's what I think. We need to expand Social Security. Make sure that every American who relies on Social Security can afford their basic needs. And I have a bill to do just that. My bill would bump up benefits by $200 a month right now to give seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. So, all right. Now, there's Elizabeth Warren talking about the infamous $200 per month raise. And I want to break down what she said because there's a lot packed into that short clip. There's a lot of information there that I think we need to examine and really dig into. Now, I do want to point out a couple of the key takeaways that she mentioned right there in that little video clip. Number one, she mentioned the 2.8% COLA. Obviously, we already know about that. We've been talking about that for months now. That was announced back in October 2025. It went into effect in January 2026. Everybody who's getting Social Security saw that increase show up in their checks this month. But she also said something very interesting about it, which I've been saying for many, many years, which is the way in which the COLA is calculated is so incredibly delayed and bad that by the time it's actually applied to benefit checks, it's like long gone, right? The inflation has already happened. The damage has already been done. And then months later, you get this cost of living adjustment that's supposed to help you catch up, but it doesn't actually catch you up because inflation kept going during all those months. Here's how they do the COLA. And again, you probably heard me say this before, but I'll say it just super fast because it's important to understand how broken this system is. They take the third quarter inflation, July, August, and September of the current year inflation. They compare it over the same period from the previous year. So they're looking at July, August, September of this year compared to July, August, September of last year. The difference in inflation between those two periods is the COLA for the following year. It makes no sense at all. It is so out of date. It's so delayed. By the time you get the COLA in January, you're getting an adjustment based on inflation from July, August, and September of the previous year. That's 6 months ago at a minimum. And in reality, it's even worse than that because inflation doesn't just happen in those 3 months. Inflation has been happening all year long. But they're only looking at those 3 specific months to calculate the adjustment. I've mentioned that many, many times over the years. They should really, really figure out a different way to calculate the COLA because that is so delayed. It's hurting beneficiaries in a massive, massive way. And Elizabeth Warren touched on this in her video. She said the adjustment happens after inflation has already done its damage. That's exactly what I've been saying. The damage is done. Prices have already gone up. Your benefits have already lost purchasing power. And then 6 months later, you get a small adjustment that doesn't even fully compensate you for what you've already lost. Now, she also went on to indicate that Social Security benefit checks have lost 20% of their purchasing power in the last 15 or so years. This is actually true. This is not something she just made up. This is not political spin. This is based on a study that was released by the Senior Citizens League back in 2025. So just last year, obviously, and I did talk about that many times here on the channel in separate videos and in live streams. I covered this extensively because I think it's one of the most important issues facing Social Security beneficiaries right now. But yes, that is totally true. 20% loss of purchasing power over 15 years. That's substantial. That's not a small number. Now, you might be wondering, what do I mean by depletion of purchasing power? What does that actually mean in real terms? Here's what it means. If you had $100 in Social Security benefits 15 years ago, that $100 is only worth $80 today in terms of what it can actually buy. $100 is only worth $80 today for a Social Security beneficiary. We've lost 20% of our purchasing power. In other words, your dollars don't go as far as they used to. $100 is basically only worth $80 in Social Security dollars today, if that makes sense. Okay, that's what that comes down to. Your rent has gone up. Your groceries have gone up. Your utilities have gone up. Your medications have gone up. Everything has gotten more expensive. But your Social Security benefit has not kept pace with those increases. No wonder why beneficiaries are falling behind so rapidly. This is why you hear stories all the time from people saying, I don't understand. I get a COLA every year. My benefit goes up every year. But I feel like I have less money than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, that's because you do have less money. Your purchasing power has declined. You can buy less with your Social Security check today than you could 15 years ago, even though the dollar amount is higher. She also went on to say some other statistics that I think we should examine really quickly, statistics that are really important for understanding just how critical Social Security is for millions of Americans, which is she mentioned that 50% of beneficiaries rely on their benefit check for 50% of their income. Think about that for a second. Half of all Social Security beneficiaries, that's about 35 million people, get half of their total income from Social Security. It's a lot of people that rely on a huge percentage of their benefit for their income. These aren't people who have Social Security as a little supplement on top of a big pension and a bunch of investment income. These are people who are counting on that Social Security check to pay their bills. If that check doesn't show up, if that check is smaller than expected, if that check doesn't keep up with inflation, they're in trouble. She also said that 25% of beneficiaries, or 1 out of 4 people, rely on their Social Security benefit check for all of their monthly income. 100% of their income comes from Social Security, no pension, no retirement savings, no part-time job, no investment income, just Social Security. And I would say that that's also very, very true, right? I see this all the time in the comments on my videos. People saying, this is all I have. Social Security is my only income. If this benefit gets cut, I don't know what I'm going to do. So the point being is that these benefits continue to fall behind. The purchasing power continues to erode. The COLAs don't keep up with actual inflation, and millions of people are struggling as a result. I mean, this is no shock whatsoever to anyone who's been paying attention. This has been the trend for years and years and years. Well, as you also heard there kind of at the end of the clip, she mentioned, I have a bill to raise benefits up by $200 per month for all beneficiaries. Notice she said Social Security beneficiaries, seniors, people with disabilities. She was very specific about who would be included. Basically, all beneficiaries, fixed income benefits, VA beneficiaries are even on the list. And yes, SSI is also included. I know that a lot of you wonder, hey, what about SSI? Does this include SSI recipients or just Social Security retirement recipients? SSI, SSDI, Social Security retirement. All of these programs would be included in this proposal. Things like this. Okay, now here's the thing. I want to point this out because, again, I'm going to get this question down below so many times. I can already see the comments forming in my head right now. When is it coming? When are we going to get it? Has it passed yet? When will the checks go out? How do I apply for it? It hasn't passed yet. Let me be very clear about that. This has not passed. This is not law. You are not getting $200 a month right now. But she's out here talking about it again. She's pushing for it again. She's making videos about it. She's trying to build public support for it. Now, remember, the legislation that she's referring to, I would imagine, is the Emergency Social Security Inflation Relief Act, which she actually introduced twice in 2025. I think it was in February or March of 2025. She introduced it the first time, and then she did it again at the end of October 2025. So she introduced the same bill twice in the same year, which tells me she's really trying to keep this issue in front of people. And here she is, January 2026, coming out with this video right here, talking about that again and talking about how it could be applied right now to benefits, how this money could be going out to beneficiaries right now today if Congress would just pass this bill. Well, hey, news flash, everybody. Get this. This $200 per month raise was supposed to be applied right now. Right now. Not next year, not 6 months from now. Seriously, right now. Okay, that is the proposal within the Emergency Social Security Inflation Relief Act. They literally wanted to raise benefits by $200 per month for the first 6 months of 2026. Hello! We're in the first half of 2026. We're in January 2026 right now. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, exactly. That's where we're at right now. This is when it was supposed to happen. So this was literally supposed to be applied right here, right now, in our monthly benefits with this piece of legislation, right? This wasn't supposed to be something that happens next year or in 2027. This was supposed to be happening right now. So it's supposed to be here for the first 6 months, January through June of 2026. Okay, I even talked about this in yesterday's video in the morning. I mentioned the $200. That's what it would be. $200 multiplied by 6 months is $200 total over that 6-month period. So if you're a Social Security beneficiary, you would get an extra $200 in January, an extra $200 in February, March, April, May, June. 6 months of $200 payments. That's $200 total. Now, the problem with this, and I want to be honest about this, is that if they were to do it and just abruptly end this as of July, right, after the 6 months is over, I feel like that'd be a really bad situation for beneficiaries. Don't get me wrong. The $200 would be great. I think everybody would welcome an extra $200 a month. That would help a lot of people pay their bills, buy groceries, afford their medications. But I think after 6 months, and they just pull the rug out from under us and say it was a fun run, well, now you're on your own. That's not going to be good for beneficiaries. Because what happens is people adjust their budgets based on the income they're receiving. If you're getting an extra $200 a month for 6 months, you're going to start counting on that money. You're going to use it to pay bills. You might take on a slightly higher rent. You might buy a medication you've been putting off. You might help out a family member. And then in month 7, that money disappears. You've adjusted your budget. You've adjusted your expenses, and now you're $200 short every month. That could be devastating for some people. Although the extra $200 for 6 months would be very, very welcome. So, it's a double-edged sword. So you've heard my take on this before. If you haven't, I can certainly make you a dedicated video if you want me to dig deeper into this. But I think that they could reform this proposal a lot, make it way more refined down to just the lowest income beneficiaries that need it the most. Instead of giving $200 to everybody, including people who might not necessarily need it as desperately, they could target it to the people who are really struggling. They could increase it to even $400 a month for a specified period of time for the lowest income beneficiaries. Or they could keep it at $200 and extend out the time in which the beneficiaries get it for like a year or two, or even longer if they made these payments highly specified on the lowest income beneficiaries rather than everybody. Because here's the reality. If you're a Social Security beneficiary who's also getting a nice pension and you have some retirement savings and you're doing okay financially, an extra $200 a month is nice, but you don't necessarily need it to survive. But if you're a beneficiary who's living on $200 a month in Social Security, and that's your only income, that extra $200 is life-changing. That could be the difference between being able to afford your rent or being evicted. That could be the difference between being able to buy your medications or going without. So I think there's a way to make this proposal more targeted, more effective, and potentially more politically viable. because it would cost less money if you're only giving it to the people who truly need it most. Anyway, I can make you a dedicated video talking about that if you'd like me to. Let me know in the comments if you want me to go deeper into how this could be reformed to make it more effective. Anyway, this is where we're at as of right now. Just want to bring you this quick video clip here so you can see exactly what Elizabeth said. You heard it directly from her. You heard her talk about the 20% loss of purchasing power. You heard her talk about the 2.8% COLA not being enough. You heard her talk about half of seniors relying on Social Security for half their income. And you heard her pitch for the $200 a month increase. All right, anyway, I'll keep you posted on this as we get more information. This is something I'm going to be tracking very closely because if there's any movement on this legislation, if there's any chance of it actually passing, you need to know about it. We will see what happens. Only time will tell, unfortunately. It's kind of the name of the game with so many things that are going on in Washington right now. We have to be patient because we're basically working at the mercy of the lawmakers and their speed is slow. Very slow. I mean, glacially slow. I can't even talk as slow as they move, right? Congress moves at a pace that would make a snail look fast, but that's the reality we're dealing with. Now, I want to give you a little bit of context about the likelihood of this actually passing because I think it's important to manage expectations here. Elizabeth Warren can introduce this bill. She can make videos about it. She can talk about it all day long. But at the end of the day, this bill has to pass both the House and the Senate, and then it has to be signed by the president. And right now, the political environment in Washington is not exactly conducive to passing new spending bills, especially big spending bills that would cost billions and billions of dollars. The $200 a month increase for all Social Security beneficiaries would be expensive. We're talking about 70 million beneficiaries getting an extra $200 a month. That's $14 billion per month. Over 6 months, that's $84 billion. That's a lot of money. Now, Elizabeth Warren has proposed ways to pay for it. She's talked about taxing the wealthy, closing tax loopholes, making corporations pay their fair share. But those proposals are also controversial and would face significant opposition in Congress. So the question is, can she get enough votes to actually pass this? And right now, I'm skeptical. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it will never happen. But I am saying that you shouldn't count on this money showing up in your bank account next month. Don't adjust your budget based on the assumption that you're going to get an extra $200 a month starting in February, because there's a very real possibility that this bill never makes it out of committee, never gets a vote on the floor, never becomes law. That said, I do think it's important that people are talking about this issue. I do think it's important that there are lawmakers who are acknowledging that Social Security benefits are not keeping up with the cost of living. I do think it's important that there's attention being paid to the fact that millions of seniors and people with disabilities are struggling to make ends meet on their current benefits.